The film begins in 1946, where a married couple named Barbara and Brooks is caring for a child. That evening, the young couple is seen attending a party. This is not just any party, it seems the guests there are predominantly wealthy people from the city. From this, we can tell that Barbara and Brooks belong to the upper class. Although it initially appears quite romantic, after returning from the party, it seems they have a heated argument, giving a clue that something is amiss in their relationship. Time passes, and we see Tony growing up healthy into his teenage years. Tony, who is now quite intelligent, becomes a source of pride for his parents. In fact, one day when a French guest at their home asks Tony to read a book on adult topics, he politely declines. He does so because he understands etiquette and is skilled in the French language. The French person had also insulted Barbara with some inappropriate words, but it turns out Barbara is fluent in French, and she reprimands the person. However, behind this, Tony's rainbow mindset begins to emerge. There was a time when Tony was left alone by his parents at a hotel for some time. Tony quickly invited his friend to spend the night with him, and shockingly, that friend was male. Time passed, and it was now 1967, during which Tony and his family were enjoying a summer vacation in Spain. During that time, Tony seemed to have a crush on a girl named Blanca. Even though it appeared that Tony was also involved romantically with his male friend at the time, he continued to flirt with Blanca until she eventually joined the vacation with Tony's parents. During that time, Barbara was relieved because her child didn't identify himself as rainbow people. While they were at the restaurant, Brooks spent more time chatting with Blanca. That evening, Blanca and Tony celebrated their anniversary, where Tony appeared hesitant and awkward because Blanca immediately invited him to spend the night together. Due to the highly supportive atmosphere that evening, combined with the cold weather that required them to create warmth, their activities ended as expected by the viewers, with Blanca having a hormone activities with Tony. However, the beautiful moment didn't last long. One day, Barbara went to the airport and found Brooks and Blanca planning to travel together. Barbara tried to catch up with them to express her anger and seek an explanation, but unfortunately, they already fall in love with each other. Barbara left them both with a shattered heart. Barbara's heartbreak deepened when she returned home and discovered that Tony had reverted to identifying himself as the rainbow people. However, she was too tired to argue, so she decided to let her child be. Barbara made the decision to move on and began seeking the companionship of a paid companion named Sam. Sam played a significant role in helping Barbara find happiness after the turmoil caused by Brooks and Tony. Sam distracted Barbara from her troubles by taking her out to eat and shopping, among other activities. Tony, who was unhappy how his father treated his mother, sent several letters to Brooks and Blanca. However, the two happy individuals chose not to dwell too much on their past. Blanca came across one of the letters written by Tony, and she called Brooks to discuss it. But it seemed that Brooks was no longer concerned about it. Meanwhile, Sam had not only become close to Barbara but also developed a decent relationship with Tony. When Barbara found out about this, she became upset with Sam and ended up having a major argument with him. However, Sam, feeling guilty, eventually apologized. One day, Barbara heard that pursuing hobbies could help reduce sadness, so she picked up her paintbrush and tried to paint again. But the sadness inside her was too overwhelming, making it hard for her to focus on painting. Fortunately, Sam came to comfort her. However, at that moment, Barbara began to feel passionate, and since she had been deprived of affection for a long time, she asked Sam to touch her, which Sam willingly complied with. Then we saw Tony, who was very depressed. Starting from his girlfriend being taken away by his father to his current identity as a rainbow people. When he got home, Tony, with his depressed aura, decided to treat it all with the liquor that Tony was currently holding. Sip after sip made Tony drunk. But when he was intoxicated, Tony heard a moaning sound which made him curious and immediately looked for the source of the sound. And sure enough, Tony caught Barbara and Sam's having hormone activities. Under the influence of alcohol, Tony decided to take off his clothes and join them instead. But instead of being embarrassed or angry, Barbara laughed. Barbara is no longer sad now. But the fun didn't last long, because Sam decided to go abroad to pursue his education. Barbara became depressed again. And because she was too stressed, she tried to end her life. Where in the end it was critical but could still be saved. Barbara slowly recovered, although now only Tony was left beside her. And finally in 1972, Barbara decided to move back to London with Tony. There she spent time as a fairly rich socialite mother. One day, she attended another party invitation with Tony. And 10 steps from there she was chatting with Tony. "I don't know which devil," whispered Barbara. Suddenly Barbara felt like she wants to have hormone activities with Tony. And she also seduced her son. Tony, who was carried away by the atmosphere, ended up being carried away by his mother's wishes. The incident happened on the sofa. But after that incident, it seemed Tony became even more mentally devastated. Where he becomes a person who likes to get angry even though the problem is only small things. One day, he fussed with Barbara because his dog's collar had disappeared somewhere. Tony and Barbara looked for the dog's collar and finally found it in the kitchen. He had a sad expression and his face showed that Tony had a mental disorder. Barbara scolded her son unreasonably. Even though they find the collar, Tony is still annoyed. Until finally he stabbed his mother until she lay helpless. This incident killed Barbara. However, Tony still had time to eat casually next to his mother's corpse. This further proves that Tony is suffering from a mental disorder. Tony was finally arrested. But he cannot be punished because of his mental disorder. He was looked after by his grandmother. However, the same incident happened again and Tony was put on trial and sent to prison. In the story, Tony finally ended his life by covering his face with plastic in 1981, and the film ended.